Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined as usual by Andrew Roscoe, and we're here today for a very special episode of My Star Wars Show because today, finally, it's time to talk about the premiere of Obi-Wan Kenobi, or as it should just be called, Kenobi. The first two episodes of the show are out, and we have a lot to say, and so do you guys. And we're talking in kind of a general sense here, because here's a situation. We have a Discord server, link to which is in the top of the description, and in there's a channel called My Star Wars Show, and we talk all about Star Wars in there. And if you join, you can have a special role called Backlog Bantha, and we will we'll pull from you guys some audience solicitations for future episodes. I tried to do this for this one. We didn't really get any. Basically, what happened is I said, "Hey, leave your thoughts about Kenobi, and we'll read them out on the show." And then we just ended up having a conversation with probably 6-7 people about it. But it's not. None of it's like really usable for the program. So frankly, honestly, that's even more incentive to join because you don't want to miss out on those spontaneous conversations. But that's enough of the plugs. Like the video, ring the bell. It's traditional YouTube stuff. Leave a comment, boost engagement. We're here to scum for numbers. But Andrew, on top of our pursuit of YouTube fame, first and foremost, we're Nintendo. Well, I am a Nintendo fan. That's not what I meant to say. I meant to say Star Wars. We're very flustered. It's a big Star Wars weekend. It's been a big week in general, but Kenobi time.
I mean, I like Nintendo too, but I mean, it's not my highest priority.
Right now, my highest priority is talking about Kenobi, and I was very proud of myself on Twitter yesterday. You know, the Lucasfilm panel happens, all kinds of cool announcements about shows. I post Mandalorian, can't wait for more Mandalorian. You know, Skeleton Crew, we don't know a whole lot about, but sounds compelling. Andor trailer looks awesome. We're going to talk more about that later in detail in a different episode. But then I said, but there's one thing on my mind, and I post the iconic video of Sam Witwer screaming Kenobi for Star Wars Rebels, because I have been singularly focused on the show in the last couple of weeks. And I got to say, Andrew, it lived up to my hype. But before I give my thoughts, what do you think about Kenobi so far?
I like how much they withheld from the show and before they actually showed us these first two episodes, because I was going into it thinking oh, we're probably, I mean, is it a spoiler to say to go off Tatooine? Is that a spoiler?
No, because we see other planets in that.
Okay, cool. Because
we don't see a particularly lush planet, so we won't mention that one, but we see like the urban cyberpunk-esque planet.
Yeah, so I didn't expect us to be off Tatooine so quickly. I mean, it didn't happen until the second episode, but still, it's pretty early on. I thought we were going to spend half of the show was going to be on Tatooine or something, and then something for the second half of the show is going to be somewhere else. But I just saw it again. I saw both episodes again for the second time just now.
Yeah, and
I'm so glad that they kind of did the Rian Johnson thing, but in a way they actually liked, where they completely, what's the phrasing again? Something expectations?
Subverting our expectations.
Thank you, sir. There you go. They did that with how I thought Obi-Wan was going to behave a certain way. And then when he's completely the opposite way, I'm we're doing something really interesting with Kenobi here. And so I'm loving the show so far. I already know for a fact it's better than we got from Boba.
Definitely.
Clearly. Is it going to be better than Mando overall? I think it has a high chance of being better than Mando. But so far, just the characters we're introduced to. We see my boy Han, or Sung Kang from, I think of him as Han from Tokyo Drift all the time. So
that's why I recognize his voice.
Yeah, he's one of the Inquisitors, the one with the weird mushroom helmet thing.
Yeah.
And I actually do like Reva's character. I know some people already kind of she's too kind of getting in the way. But I'm no, part of being the dark side is obsession, is part of putting your desires and wants in front of the mission kind of thing. So
yeah,
I really like that. I enjoying everything we see. I like how we kind of catch up with Owen a little bit. There's some things I don't like. There's one part early on where the CGI is particularly bad. And I'm curious to see if you notice it too, but it's a part where he's eating a meal outside of his cave. And there's something weird about the lighting where you can tell he's kind of superimposed onto the scene.
Sure.
If you caught that too. Just in general, I like it's not a spoiler, but in the beginning when he kind of has the same food that Rey does, where you put the thing into the pot and it kind of bubbles up.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool that came back. And I mean, just in general, I'm really liking all the little references, some recontextualization of things from A New Hope, especially with certain characters, but also certain objects, like a certain toy. I thought that was really kind of very cute nod there. So that's where I'm at with the show.
Yeah, I love it so far. I really love it. I think that it finds it the show has found a way out of the problem I anticipated it was going to have. Because if fans of the show remember, for a while I was not super high on the potential of Kenobi. It kind of felt like it was going to be ultimate small galaxy syndrome, and it was going to be we're just going to kind of kick around on Tatooine, sort of retread a lot of ground we've covered before, not only in the series but in Disney Plus shows already. Because we spent a lot of time on Tatooine in obviously Book of Boba Fett, but also Mando too. But we don't do that here. This is it's such an expansion of canon in a way that feels really genuine.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things here that if you put them down on paper, would have said, "Damn, that's going to be forced," but it's not. I'm thinking specifically about a character who is very prominently featured in the first two episodes, who is not even mentioned to be in the show based on the promotional materials.
Very surprising.
Yes, and we will get into that character's appearance very shortly. But I think Deborah Chow is doing a really great job here. The show feels restrained in a lot of ways. They don't just go all in on the fan service, but they give you enough. And it just feels like a really well-told story that, as you say, I think rightfully subverts our expectations of who Kenobi was going to be going into the series. And it's done in a very organic way. It all feels like it fits in terms of where we are in the Star Wars universe 10 years removed from Order 66. I don't find myself questioning character motivations. I don't find myself confused by how things are unfolding. It just feels like a really solidly told story with great visuals and a surprising amount of variety that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
But Andrew, I would like to get right into spoilers right here.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm just going to put up this is your big spoiler alert warning. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to click away. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're into spoilers.
There we go.
Leia.
Did not see that coming at all. No. At all. And I'm like when we get to that shot where we go to like Alderaan and we see somebody being dressed up, I'm like, oh, they're not going to show her. Like, they're not going to show her. This is going to be just a quick scene just to give us an update of like, oh, by the way, here's like the other twin. And then we're going to go back to, Kenobi and stuff.
Yeah.
And like when we like focus so much on her and like, oh, it's not her. It's like some other like body double kind of fill in for her. And her mom's like, oh, she's either in the kitchen or like in the or in the basement or something. Oh, the woods. And I was like, the woods? Like, okay. So we see her in the woods and it's like, oh yeah, she's our princess, but she's really not like a proper princess, right? She's very much kind of just does things her own way. And it's so like, it was a little off-putting, but I kind of got used to it really quick where she just seems very, for her age, like very mature.
Yeah.
But then again, she always was kind of that way where she's just very bossy and kind of very sure of who she is. And so when she's kind of, I like the way she climbs through the trees and she's kind of the contrast to like Luke, right? Where we're kind of given the idea that Luke doesn't know about the greater world that much beyond, that's why Obi-Wan tries to give him the little shuttle toy, right? The little shuttle toy. And she's like, oh, like she's just naming off the ships and stuff. It's like, okay, we're automatically getting the impression she's very well educated, which is, of course, as being a princess, she's gonna have that education and stuff. And they're already kind of like grooming her for the Senate and stuff. Like this is a girl with like a plan, in contrast to Luke, who gets kind of like the bum end of the deal, who's kind of just like a farmhand basically. So I like how I did not expect to see Leia, but I'm very glad that they kind of held that back just because it was a nice surprise for us.
Yeah, it was a really good surprise. It also took me time, and I still don't know exactly how I feel about like 10-year-old girl boss Leia. I think that some of her dialogue does ring as being ingenuine at times. A little
off-putting. Yeah.
I like that. I like that Obi-Wan makes a joke in the second episode, like, "How old are you?"
Yeah.
It's nice that they at least acknowledge it. And I suppose it feels like this. It feels like Leia didn't change at all between 10 and however old she would be then. And Revenge of the Sith. What is it? A 9-year time difference, I believe, between the show and. Sorry, not Revenge of the Sith, but between A New Hope.
New Hope. I think it's like 9, yeah.
Yeah, so she's like 19. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the writing there is the only thing holding me back from totally loving her inclusion. But nonetheless, I think once I started to vibe with it a little bit more, I think that the kid, I'm not sure what the actress's name is, but I think she gives a solid enough performance. I I started to really like what she provided for the show because it gets Bail back into the fold, and I love Bail Organa. I think he does a great job here.
Boy, Jimmy Smits.
Yeah, and just getting to see Alderaan is great. Getting Obi-Wan off planet is great. I like what she does for the plot, and I like what this young Leia does to like bring a new dimension to this entire chapter of the story. It was a really smart choice.
Absolutely. I just thinking about when we get to the end of the series, we're gonna have now, like when you rewatch A New Hope, we're gonna have like a reference for like when Alderaan gets blown up, like we know what is lost when Alderaan gets blown up.
Yeah.
And now this, I'm thinking of like when they rescue Leia from the, like her cell on the Death Star, and it's like, oh, like Obi-Wan, you're here with Obi-Wan. Like, oh, like now we have this, like she knows who Obi-Wan is because we're introduced to like their introduction to each other here and stuff. So like all the stuff, like all the background stuff that it's going to provide now, like I'm excited to see what else they do that's going to enhance my future viewings of like the older films. Like with the Imperial Shuttle toy that we see Luke playing with in A New Hope and stuff. And it's like, we know where that came from. And it's like, it's not like weird, like the golden dice with Han, right? Where it's like we have no, like, I mean, a lot of us didn't even know those were there. Right. But this is kind of like, because I think of that when I saw that toy immediately, I'm like, oh, that's where it comes from. And it's like, we don't need that, but I like how it's very thoughtful and it's something that most of the audience is aware of, unlike like the dice with Han, where it's kind of like when was that ever like a plot thing or like anything that we acknowledge, right? So I'm glad to see like what they're gonna do to kind of recontextualize parts of A New Hope and I imagine other movies going forward.
Yeah, it's very tasteful. That's what I would say, because it's another one of those things I would groan about on paper. Oh, we have to see how Luke gets the T-16 toy that he plays with in one shot of A New Hope. But ultimately, it fits nicely into the story being told. It feels like it's like we're a snowball rolling down a hill and we're picking up the material that makes sense as we go. These are not the sometimes Filoni-esque reaches we make sometimes, or the more blatant fan service moves that we've seen here and there in some of the Disney Plus shows. I really like that. And I like seeing these characters in these moments that don't have a lot of screen time get more. So like I'm thinking of Uncle Ben. I think Joel Edgerton's Uncle Ben here is really great. When he's being confronted by Reva.
Oh, you mean Owen? Oh, Uncle Owen.
Yes, not Uncle Ben. I've been doing too much. I've been doing too much Marvel. The fucking UMP boys strike again. No, of course, Uncle Owen. Yeah, when we see Uncle Owen face off against Reva, and he's just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean like badass. I just mean like his demeanor is so cool. Right. Even when she ignites that lightsaber like to his neck, we see him flinch for a moment. But we see him hold fast. And that scene, his interaction with Obi-Wan, it really better contextualizes the sort of frustration that Luke had in A New Hope of like, yeah, Uncle Owen is just kind of like a stubborn old man. And set up really nicely here.
I like when she asked him, she's like, I wonder if you could protect your family from me. And he doesn't like flinching. He doesn't get like haughty. He just goes, Like he just kind of does like those grunt where like I don't know how to answer that, but I'm not going to stay quiet kind of thing. Or he's just like, I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Like he's not like, she's trying to intimidate him, obviously, and he's kind of just not playing along. And I like that moment. Going back to the toy just real quick. I like how like Owen comes back, jumps at it at his feet, and he's kind of like don't come around again. Like leave the kid alone. And Obi-Wan's like, it's just a toy, and it's like we don't need that. And he's like. And it's like, it's funny how when Obi's like kind of spy on him from a distance and stuff, like you get the idea. Yeah, he's watching over him, but like he doesn't have to give him something, right? He doesn't have to give him a toy or whatever. It's like he kind of almost like he feels bad for him, but also in a way where like he's a kid, like he sees him being used as a farmhand. Basically, it's like he needs to have as much of a normal life within the confines of his situation, right? So I like how that we do kind of see sort of the kind of thoughtful side of Obi-Wan, not just like the mission and stuff. So going back to real quick, what did you think about the little montage of the prequel scenes in the beginning of the first episode?
I I thought it was just funny how they condensed the prequels down into that 2 minute recap
quickly,
or whatever.
right? So small.
Yeah, because it begins and it's like skip recap. Like, well, what do you mean skip recap?
What recap?
What are you recapping? And then like, oh, you're recapping all of the prequels. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was neat, and it reminded me that I've just not seen Attack of the Clones in so long. Like,
okay.
It's obviously I know that story very well, but like the iconography of it has faded from my mind a little bit because it's definitely the Star Wars movie I revisit least frequently. I mean, I honestly don't remember the last time I've seen Attack of the Clones, but that was a fun way to open, contrasted against a really not fun proper cold open for the series, which I think is worth talking about. And on like a meta level, both helped and hindered by the absolutely horrible news we've heard about
I did think about that. Yeah,
the terrible shooting in Texas, which puts kind of a weird light over the beginning of the episode. But ultimately, I mean, this has been done for so long, it just really terrible happenstance. But it's we see Order 66, and we see this Jedi master they're like doing yoga or whatever, like doing like forced meditations and then
martial arts or something kind of. Yeah, like Tai Chi kind of thing.
Yeah, it's so serene, and then those 501st troopers burst in, and then it's so panicked. I think this is such an amazing way to show us a different angle of Order 66, because we've gotten it here and there. I mean, we see it some, we learn about, Kanan's past and Rebels a little bit, his Order 66 past, or Cal Kestis and his master.
Probably one of my favorite interpretations of Order 66. Yeah.
I mean, Order 66 has been explored so many times, but being back in that Jedi temple, coming right out of that recap of Revenge of the Sith, and running down that hallway as they're just soldiers everywhere. Because my thought was there's always a piece of my mind like, yeah, but it's just clones. I mean, there's a shit ton of Jedi in the temple. They'll just kill them, right? But this scene communicates so nicely, like that panic. They're just everywhere, like that master is just trying to shepherd these younglings along, and she's getting shot. And there's this like so many kinetic moments of like she's running and then she turns around and like there's like a backflip to reflect one of their bolts back at them. There's just like there's like such a sense of hopelessness, and like we just got to move. It's really, really well done, and I think it nicely puts you in the headspace of Obi-Wan of this is going to stick with you. Order 66, like, it's been 10 years for Obi-Wan, but this event is what he couldn't prevent that from happening. He couldn't stop Anakin from marching those 501st soldiers into that temple. And so I think it was a really powerful way to begin the show.
Yeah, I like the scene immediately after that when the Jedi Master, she finally does fall, and then we kind of see like below ground in the background, we actually see all the Jedi that are present on the floor, like either they're dead or they're in the process of dying as they're fighting scores and scores of clone troopers at that point. And I think that kind of, because for some reason when I watched the original Revenge of the Sith, I always thought it was weird how they were able to just sweep through the Jedi so easily. But here, like you get kind of like the scale of how big the temple is, and also just how scattered the Jedi were. It's not like they were just like all huddled, just waiting for the clones to arrive, right? They were all going through their daily routines, living like their life, doing whatever it is that they're doing. Yeah. And so like it makes that panic and the sudden like clone uprising kind of thing like way more just not realistic, I want to say, but I guess it does make it more possible, I guess you could say like that.
Yeah,
it makes it seem like, oh yeah, this is like you're just doing your day-to-day thing. Oh shit, there's clones like I just like, and like she even like panics, like she's like reaching for her lightsaber, and even like the way she's fighting is more frantic. It's not like a calm Jedi. She's very much like checking up on them and like do like multitasking and everything. And like you're right, it's a very frantic scene, and I just like how I'm glad we opened with that, because like right at the beginning, like we see someone who looks like she could be a young Reva. Like that is her situation, which reminds me a lot from Jedi Fallen Order, how we do get one of the Inquisitors who's in a similar situation where she's angry against the Jedi for kind of, I guess, or her master specifically, but the Jedi in general for kind of allowing her to be tortured and go through the dark side, kind of like re-education kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well just segue right into Reva, who is what I'm really interested about leaving these two episodes is who the main antagonist of this show really is going to be. Because what's set up here is this tension within, we see three Inquisitors. We see the Grand Inquisitor, and then we see Reva, and then I forget the name of the third one.
He's fourth brother, I think.
I forget exactly which.
I don't know how many siblings there are, so I don't know.
I mean, it goes up to what, the ninth sister in either Rebels or Jedi Fallen Order. So there's many of them, but there's this interesting tension here where we learn that the Inquisitors have been trying to find Kenobi and they can't. And for whatever reason, they've given up. But Reva hasn't. And there becomes this not only desire for Kenobi, but this power struggle within them. And we see, the Grand Inquisitor get stabbed by Reva at the end of the second episode. Right. And so I'm really compelled by her character. And I'm not only questioning who she is, because she clearly knows more about Obi-Wan and about Anakin than the first two episodes let on. But at the same time, is she the main antagonist of the show? Is it going to be the Grand Inquisitor, who I think pretty clearly is going to survive? Or is it going to be Vader? I'm very interested in that because I really like her character so far.
Yeah, I that's a great question, because I'm thinking of like all the PR stuff they've done, all the press junkets and all like they're really hyping up at that Hayden Christensen, is back as Vader. And like even like the trailer where we see him like being assembled and everything, like that seems to be what they're leading up to.
Yeah.
And it would be jarring if she's kind of like our main antagonist, and then just for the last episode we just switch to Vader. That would be a little strange, but not something we haven't kind of seen before. When you think of, like, for example, spoilers for Jedi Fallen Order, that's pretty much what happens. Is you're dealing with the same Inquisitor throughout the game until the very end, when she has like a last moment kind of like heel turn and then gets killed by a Vader, right? So I'm wondering, are they going to do the exact same things? I feel like a lot of this, there's a lot of parallels between this and Fallen Order, I think.
Yes, there are.
And so I'm wondering, no, they're smarter than that. They're not going to do the same exact thing. I remember you mentioned in the Discord server where you do feel like Reva is going to end up turning at some point. And
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if I see that, because she seems so like she's like a better embodiment of the dark side than I think the other Inquisitors are, where she's just about, like, they're very like formal, very about the mission. Do you know how to catch a Jedi? It's patience, right? Like, patience is not a Sith virtue. That is a Jedi virtue. You know what I'm saying? And so just like the way he's like very kind of like, oh, I'm very formal and, like dignity, like kind of like that. And like Reva is very much kind of just like her motion, is what leads her. So I feel like her turning light wouldn't make a lot of sense.
My feeling is just like, I really think her stabbing the Grand Inquisitor means something more.
That's very dark side too, if you think about it.
It is very dark side to want to kill your master and take their place. And I mean, that's set up pretty clearly, but like, is it really in her best interest to stab him right there? I mean, she knew Obi-Wan was behind those boxes that whole time. Like, something about it, there's just, I suppose I'm just compelled to understand why she's so interested in Obi-Wan and how she knows who Darth Vader is. Because I think understanding the nature of that relationship is going to make my theory either completely baseless as it is right now, or a little bit more founded. I just think they do a really nice job of writing a lot of things into these first two episodes that feel ambiguous, but not in an annoying way. So I think about like Kumail Nanjiani's character, who I love his character.
Really fun character. I like him.
He's so fun, but there's this one moment when he's basically like a fucking Chris Angel Jedi. He's put on a whole mind freak show, but he calls Ben Obi-Wan.
He does, yeah.
So he knows who this guy is. So the show just plants good seeds.
But wasn't that information already like on those little like the little things that pop up, like the wanted poster kind of thing? I thought.
I mean, it probably was, but like he has a complete 180 to wanting to help Obi-Wan, right? It's suggested to me that he knew that the name Obi-Wan really meant something to him. And enough to put himself in Reva's path, enough to help him and not want his like 500 credit finder's fee to get off world and everything. Like, it seemed like they just planting these seeds of characters who are going to know more than they let on.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, because if Revan knows that Anakin is Darth Vader, it makes me wonder, like, how many do all the Inquisitors know? Like, how far, like, is his secret of him surviving, Mustafar and all that? Like, how far deep does that go? Because when she's like, "That's right," like, he's like Vader, like your former like apprentice and everything, and like, of course, we had like that the Obi-Wan in shock and kind of reeling, like what, like how's that possible, right? For some reason, I don't know why I assumed he knew that Anakin was Vader, just because, like, just to go off real quick, we have that scene where the Jedi, I forget his name, but you mentioned his name, the one in the desert. He's like
Nori, I think his name was. He's played by Benny Safdie, who directed Uncut Gems and Good Time.
Okay, there you go. So he approaches Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan pretends like, "I don't know who you are. I don't know who you're talking about. Like, I'm not this person you think I am." And then until he eventually breaks character, and he like kind of admits that he is, right? But then we have that moment with Luke where he's like he must be trained. And it's like, well, hold on. Like, what's going on here? Like, you're distancing yourself from the Jedi, but at the same time, you're like, oh, this kid needs to be trained. I'm like, what's the mentality here? And I'm like, why does he need to be trained? So I was thinking like, oh, he must know that Anakin is out there, maybe. So when we have that moment that's revealed to him and he's like shocked, I'm like, wait a minute. Then like, what is Obi-Wan's long-term? What is he working towards?
I think the way I interpreted that is I didn't even really see that as a contradiction ultimately, because it seems like Obi-Wan is incapable of moving beyond what happened in Revenge of the Sith. I mean, Bail basically says that to him outright when Obi-Wan initially refuses to help find Leia. Mm-hmm. What it felt like to me is there was a sense of guilt that Obi-Wan needed to train Luke to complete what was left behind from Revenge of the Sith. Like, okay. This is his shot at redemption. Okay. This is what he needs to do. He failed the father. He can't fail the son too. But nonetheless, he's not willing to go beyond that. He's like, that's as far as his obligation can go. That's as far as he can see himself moving anymore. Like, he can't see himself helping Nori. He can't see himself going after Leia.
I see.
That's kind of my reading of it, because I really like this closed off Obi-Wan. He's very tormented. And I think this show it really does a nice job of instilling this sort of sense of monotony of his life and his sort of inner state by repeating his very mundane, like factory line job. He cuts the same slab of meat off of I don't know if that's like a crate dragon skeleton or something.
I really like that. Yeah. It looks like a giant fish. Like, it's just in the middle of the desert, and they're just like harvesting like jerky or salmon. It reminds me of salmon, but it looks like a cut of salmon. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not salmon. But yeah, he has like this very like kind of like clock in, clock out, clock in, clock out. I'm here to
head down.
Head down, and then when he sees something, like he sees an injustice, and he's like, I'm not gonna blow my cover for this. Like even when he's in the presence or close to the Inquisitors, I'm like, how did they not sense it? I'm like, oh yeah, like this guy has cut himself off from basically the Force at this point, where he's kind of like, he's so like undercover that like he doesn't even have his lightsaber with him. He doesn't even like really call on the Force or anything. Like, he's just kind of like, it reminds me of, you haven't played it yet, but in Knights of the Old Republic 2, like your character has something similar where like you have to like build up your Force powers again because you've been away from the Force for so long. And it's like a similar thing where we see him kind of like when you like later on, for spoilers for episode 2, where he catches Leia like as she's like in mid-fall, and like you see like this should be something simple for you, and yet it seems like you're exerting it's a great exertion to like make this happen. And it's like when you don't exercise or you don't do something for a while, you get super rusty. And so I'm thinking of like, how did they not sense it? Like, they sense that other Jedi who's there kind of in the canteen in the beginning, but they don't sense, I'm like, okay, right. He's so like hidden in the Force, which is actual Force ability to hide your presence and stuff. Yeah. But to the point where like he's so cut off from it that they just don't sense him. And that's kind of how he survived all these years, right? Like, he hasn't survived by being reckless. He's been so low key that he's just kind of just like blends in, kind of like in plain sight kind of thing. And so, I mean, that whole thing, I guess I was just confused. I'm like, are we not going to build the Order? So that's why we're kind of not trying to do this thing. or like are we trying to make Luke survive because he's maybe the son of the chosen one, therefore like this is the one person who has the best chance, and that's why we have to protect him. I was thinking, so I was kind of like what is, other than watching over Luke, like what is the end goal here for Obi-Wan, or is he really just going to dedicate his whole life to this one kid and then that's it?
It really feels like he's just purposeless, and the only thing he knows in his life now is protecting Luke. And I like that we slowly see him start to come back into his own very slowly. Complete sidebar, by the way, because you mentioned it. Did you see that Knights of the Republic 2 is coming to Switch in like a week and a half? It just got announced on Twitter, like at Star Wars Celebration, which is cool.
Aspire again?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But
play it, Abram. Play it.
I have it on Xbox. I think so. I think I'll probably just play it on there. But now we're off to a complete tangent. Thinking about exactly what you're saying about this cut off Obi-Wan, it really does draw this comparison to Jedi Fallen Order even more directly. I mean, clearly this game was a humongous inspiration of Deborah Chow, because that's what Seer Junda does, who is Cal Kestis's master or mentor. They kind of have an ambiguous relationship in the game.
Purple guy?
No, that is the woman who rescues Cal.
Oh, okay, because I wasn't sure. Like, purple guy. I don't remember his name. That's why. So
she completely cuts herself off from the Force after failing her Padawan, who ends up being obviously the main protagonist of that game, the main Inquisitor. But so that game is clearly so influential on the show, which I think is for the better, because that game really rocks. I love Jedi Fallen Order, but seeing him have to painfully reconnect to the Force and widen his scope of duty, I think is really great. I said in the Discord, that moment where he catches Leia is my favorite moment in the entire show so far, because it's like we're inching back towards this Obi-Wan who is Obi-Wan, because this really does feel like Ben. He's not old Ben Kenobi yet. He's not comfortable in his new role, but he's not Obi-Wan. He's just Ben.
He's getting there.
And seeing him slowly shake that rust off is so great. And the pain in his eyes and when he has to reach out with the Force, and that moment on Leia's face when she realizes, because up to this point, she thinks that Obi-Wan is one of the kidnappers too. She's got that throwaway line, like, if you're a Jedi, make me float. I want to float. And then he does. I saw it coming a little bit when you're running across the rooftops. Oh, she's going to slip and fall. Yeah. But it was nonetheless, I think, really powerfully executed. I love that moment.
To that note, bringing it back to Leia. I'm not always a fan of like kid actors or kid actresses in this case. And she kind of reminds me a little bit of I can't remember the girl's name, but she's Ellie in the Last of Us show that's coming up. And the girl from she was also in Game of Thrones. And I was like, I don't know if I'm buying this late. I think I already mentioned this, but like that first episode, I was like I don't like, some of the dialogue seems like this isn't something a kid would say. Like I think when she's talking to her cousin about like not being a real Organa and being like, oh, you're afraid of your father, and I'm like kind of like does this seem weird because she shouldn't like have that kind of like depth to her mind, or maybe is this like something she picks up through the Force or something?
That's what I thought.
Okay, because like to sense the like, oh, you're afraid of your father, and it's like how much of that do you actually know, or you're just kind of just like saving face to this kid or something?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like the second episode, like once we kind of got more of the like where she's kind of like I felt frustrated for Obi-Wan, where like, as someone who works with kids, trying to get the kid to do the thing you're trying to get them to do, and they get distracted by other stuff, like it's so frustrating to watch. Like when like he gets like a new outfit, like, here, we're gonna get you this, and then she's like, oh, she wants to go do the accessories, like, no, like, come on, we gotta go. And then when she runs off, and he's kind of just like someone like aware of like trying to like I don't grab kids, but like he grabs a kid and then kind of drags it, and the people are just like staring at him, and it's like are they staring at him because they recognize him, or are they staring at him because he's pulling along a kid who clearly is fighting against it? And I'm like, oh, like you're just drawing more attention, like doing this, like. But like I think it was into like about the second episode when she has that moment, that Obi-Wan says, oh, you remind me of someone. Like I think that's like when I finally actually like started liking the character, because I think in that first episode where she's kind of just like, I think that part of it was a shock and like kind of I wasn't expecting Leia to be in this, but also I was like in my mind, I'm thinking of Leia from like Rogue One, how she's portrayed, Leia from like the movies, and I'm like, is this Leia kind of? And it wasn't until the second episode where I'm like, okay, like I'm sold now. Like this is clearly going to be our Leia that we're going to grow to love over the course of the show.
Yeah,
but I'm just not. I think kid actors are just it's really hard to nail that, and I think it wasn't. I think I'm slowly getting there.
Yeah, I think that the material she was given makes the general job of being a child actor even harder. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like you have to speak like an adult, but you need to be a kid. So you need to sound like a kid, but you sound like an adult because of the script. I mean, it's a weird position she's put in, but she does actually. You draw the Last of Us comparison. I think she does feel a lot like Ellie. I actually think that there is a pretty clear Joel-Ellie relationship being built here. And we have to remember that Ellie is only, I think, 13, probably over 13 in The Last of Us.
Yeah.
So I think that is a pretty natural comparison to draw. And I like that. I like the gruffness of Obi-Wan because in watching him rescue her, it's so interesting, like thinking about Obi-Wan rescuing the Chancellor in Revenge of the Sith. And then seeing Obi-Wan rescuing Leia here. Like, he's just making so many weird decisions and bad moves. Like, I love that he's basically in like he's in like a fucking meth lab he's trying to get to her, and he gets through, and then there's he's confronted by those two guys, and there's like a Zabrak there, and he punches him in the head.
Oh yeah, the horn. Yeah,
and like cuts his hand on the horn. I'm like, what do you fought Darth Maul, not to hit him in the head. But...
You know what that reminded me of, Abram, was when he kicks General Grievous on Utapau, and he has the same reaction. It's like, that's right. Oh, that's why you have a lightsaber, Obi-Wan, because you're not good when it comes to this hand-to-hand stuff.
Yeah, but he makes it work, and like we can slowly see him getting his moves back. And then I love when I think that that head kidnapper was actually quite formidable. Like he was like a real scumbag. I like that performance. But when they've caught Obi-Wan, they've tricked him and they've got him in the wrong room, and like he's shackled up, and it's like, oh, I didn't know Jedi could bleed and everything. And then Obi-Wan throws the spice and like beats the shit out of those guys and escapes. Like, it's fun watching an Obi-Wan out of his element, trying to get by. I thought that was really cool.
And it's strange because I'm like, he has his lightsaber, he just refuses to use it because he knows he's gonna draw the attention. So it's like he's kind of like handicapping himself in a way, and he's kind of like, even when he's on the rooftops, he's like exchanging blaster fire with that weird like lizard bounty hunter guy, and it just seems so weird. It seems so weird to see Obi-Wan with like a blaster because that's not civilized for him, right?
And now he's uncivilized,
and now he has to be that way because he can't be the person he used to be anymore, because that person he used to be is the kind of person that attracts too much attention. So it's kind of like teaching an old dog new tricks in a way, and I guess remembering old tricks in a way too. And it's just like this show's really compelling, man. I'm really liking the show. I'm not sure like where we're going, like you said, villain wise, like main villain, but I'm loving so much of what we're seeing. I love whatchamacallit, the like him arriving to the planet. He's like a fish out of water. He's like, hey, like I can't track this ship anymore with his little like Game Boy Advance looking and Nokia N-Gage device. Yeah. And the guy's like, oh yeah, like this place is for people who don't want to be found. Like there's like privacy here. And he's kind of just like, you just get the sense of like, man, like really, like I was like so comfortable back on like now I like he's exposing himself, and he's just so like, I don't know. He's just so out of his element, but it's like fun to watch that. I really think it's fun to watch that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the show feels different. Like this is just like a different feel to Star Wars, because we've seen seediness before. We know hives of scum and villainy. Obviously, Andrew. We know Mos Eisley Cantina, but we don't know this place, the nightclubs and like in the meth labs and all of this stuff, and the girl dealing spice on the street. I
feel so bad for that girl. Like, we barely know her for like less than a minute, but just like her whole like how she kind of just talks about not her life story, but she's like, oh, I used to be like someone's daughter too. It's like, oh damn, like that sounds like a hope. Like she's given into desperation and hopelessness. I'm like, oh, I feel bad for her.
Yeah, it's such a different tone for the series, and I really like it. I think it feels very bold, but at the same time, we still get because when I think of Obi-Wan a lot, I think of he's got this wit about him in the prequels, which I really like.
Another happy landing.
Yeah, one of my favorite gifts to come out of Revenge of the Sith. But I think we get what's nice about the show is we get glimmers of it still. My favorite, and we mentioned the character briefly, is when we meet Kumail Nanjiani's Jedi, and I knew something was up as soon as he's like on the comm link with his friend, and that woman in her trousers in front of him is like, I am in your mind now. I am sending a family to you at Starport 4. And then watching this Obi-Wan who like still shoves a gun in his chest, but like there's a little bit of a quippiness about him. Like, oh, there's that Obi-Wan we know. It's really well handled. I like those moments a lot.
You mentioned the gruffness of Obi-Wan, where he's in the alleyway trying to just bide time because he knows like everything's being locked down. And he kind of like snaps at Leia a little bit because he's clearly frustrated with the situation.
Yeah.
And she takes out her little pocket flying droid, little cute little thing that flies around. And he's like, oh, it doesn't work. And he's like, good. And it's like, oof. Like, I mean, part of that's kind of like he doesn't like droids to begin with, but also because like he doesn't need a distraction right then and there and stuff. And like he catches himself like kind of like, oh, like maybe that wasn't like the best reaction, right? Because he kind of turns around and kind of tries to change his like demeanor and tries to be like more interested, right? He like comes down. And he's like, oh, like what happened? Like, he tries to show concern, and it's like, he's like, right, like I'm dealing with a child here. Like I can't just like he's just it's so clear that he's not used to dealing with people anymore. He's gotten away from being like, because the Jedi are like representatives, right? They're like kind of like they were like mediators and stuff like that. And now he's just like, I mean, for example, he mediates through a Jawa. Like he doesn't go into town really. He has like a liaison. Can't think of the word. You know the word I'm talking about.
A liaison.
There you go. The little Jawa who's clearly like, hey, you're missing something. I so happen to have the part you're missing. And like Obi-Wan's like, yeah, like, I know what's going on here. And he's like, this is the one connection he has. He's not going to mess around and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, he's just, like you say, he's so gruff. And for him to kind of just like, oh yeah, like I'm not sure if he's thinking like, oh, I'm a Jedi, like I should be kinder, or maybe he's just thinking like this is a child and like clearly this child's afraid. Like maybe I can afford to like loosen up a little bit, lighten up a bit. And I like that moment they have because it kind of, I mean, we kind of get that situation right after where he's like tinkering around with the little the bounty hunter thing that's introduced in Mandalorian. I forgot what they're called. There's a short word for it. I can't remember what they're called, but it's basically kind of just like the wanted poster kind of thing. And then she freaks out and like, oh, they're here for you, not like they're using me as bait for you, pretty much. Which I'm like, oh, okay, she put that together pretty quickly. And he has like that moment where she runs off and stuff. But I just like how we get a different Obi-Wan. Like when he tells the guy in the desert, like, oh, I'm not Obi-Wan. Like I'm not like it's like what? Like you're not even gonna try to help this guy out. You're like, you better bury it, just live a normal life, like whatever. Like man, like we're so far away from like Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan, Attack of the Clones Obi-Wan. It's just like it's weird, but I mean it's natural, right? People grow up, they go through different changes and stuff, and he's in survival mode. He can't afford to like to make connections that might risk or expose him. So it's good stuff.
I mean, the more we're talking about it, it literally is Joel. It literally is Joel from The Last of Us. And
yeah, you're right. He's done some stuff, right?
Man out for himself suddenly and has shepherd this kid around, so he has to warm up to her, has to relearn all of these things that he's pushed down for his own survival. I mean, the show operates on a lot of tropes, but I think they're good,
Grogu kind of in a way.
But they're good tropes to bring into the show. Like it felt very breaking the concrete floor in John Wick when Obi-Wan rides out to the desert and digs up his lightsaber.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
There's just so many good moments here.
When we see he has both lightsabers right there, I'm like, there it is.
There is one particular sequence of this show, though, Andrew, that I thought was terribly executed.
All right, let me guess. Okay. Episode 1 or 2?
Let me put it this way.
Okay.
It was a sequence that was terribly executed that is analogous to a very similar sequence from the Book of Boba Fett that was equally badly executed. Same type of sequence.
I'm trying to think, is there a chase scene on mopeds? I don't remember a chase scene on mopeds in this one.
There's a chase scene in the forest though.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe that was the one.
Yeah.
Because like she runs away and then the guy's kind of just like, and then like, oh, he's gonna send them. But then he joins in the run too. I'm like, well, why don't you just start running? Why'd you pause, direct the henchman, go get her, and then let me also join? I thought that was weird, especially on the second reviewing where like I didn't know what was going on, but then he's like she has like a 2-second head start and he kind of just like motions with his head to, like for them to follow them. And then he joins the pursuit too. And I'm like, why would you wait that long though?
Yeah, it's just not a good chase.
And you can see the henchmen, the way they're running, like they're not trying to run straight. They're running kind of like side to side to buy time, sort of like we're trying to catch her, but we don't want to catch her right away. And I'm just kind of like, you're right. You're right. That does look bad because it stuck out to me too on the second reviewing. We're like kind of just side to side run, not like with urgency. It was weird.
The thing about it is you don't need that chase set piece to tell us that Leia is like independent or brave or whatever. You don't need
her little tree slide underneath.
Yeah, because it's like if Leia probably comes up to like these people's waist. Yeah. So her legs are like
short,
a quarter of the length of their legs. You see a 10-year-old girl, you're 3 professional like intergalactic kidnappers. Boom, you run up to her, grab her, you're done. You're out of the Alderaan forest, you know? But instead we have to have this like really artificially padded out sequence where like it's like fucking Home Alone.
Yes, I was gonna say it was very 90s. It was a very like get that, grab that kid, like
like one of them literally trips over a tree trunk. I'm like, what is happening here? Just grab her, just take her. I mean, I don't want to see like I want to see Leia get kidnapped as little as the next person. But clearly you're going to kidnap her. She is not going to escape from these people. So just scoop her up, hard cut. Whoa, where'd Leia go? I don't need to play like a fucking slide whistle sound effect as these people are like bumbling trying to grab her, you know?
It did feel very 90s when I was watching them. Just like what is going on here? But like, yeah, I forgot about that till right now when you mentioned that. But yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, I guess they wanted to buy time to show them like they're ruthless. Like when one of the guards comes out to kind of find her and he just gets shot. And I was like, okay, maybe they played that out to kind of just show like, oh yeah, like they're not messing around or something like that. I don't know. I
will say, the action in episode 2 is a lot more sustained, and I thought it was really well executed. I loved the CGI is not great, but I love seeing Reva like parkouring over the rooftops.
Oh, she was so cool. Yeah, just like the backflips forward kind of thing,
and like
uses the force to bring down the little tower and like. Yeah. I like her sense of the emotion that she has, where she's just kind of I don't know at home exactly, but she's kind of just that scene too, where she's kind of just surveying like the cityscape. It just looks really cool.
Yeah. My only other negative, and this is a hypothetical one, and I think it's most likely fine. But if the Grand Inquisitor is dead for real, I will be on the warpath for our next episode about this show, Andrew, because if the Grand Inquisitor is actually dead, Rebels is entirely retconned. And that would just be unacceptable, in my opinion.
I think we've seen Darth Maul and like other characters fire these kind of things. I don't know like if she delivered a fatal blow or not. I mean, if it's not, then I wonder how he gets found then or picked up or something. But I mean, we talked about this in the Discord server where it's like a lot of people were complaining about how he doesn't look like the actual like character from Rebels. He's not even the same species, kind of. So I'm wondering if this is like kind of like a misdirect on purpose, maybe to introduce, because I mean they just call him the Grand Inquisitor, but they don't. It's not like he has like his own personal name, right? At least I don't know if he does.
I don't think so.
He just has the title, right? So I guess anybody could be a Grand Inquisitor without it being like changed, really. So I don't know. I'm just confused. I don't know because I haven't seen Rebels, so I'm just curious, like how many of these like Inquisitors or brothers and sisters there are, and I'm just curious to see how they're all gone by the time we get to A New Hope.
We see between Jedi Fallen Order and Rebels, we see a lot of Inquisitors, and we see a lot of Inquisitors get killed by a lot of interesting people. Like Darth Maul kills a couple of Inquisitors in an episode of Rebels, and it's fucking cool. Rebels is like, it's just, the thing about it is there's so much amazing stuff in Rebels, not even just like from an executional standpoint. And I think the show is quite good, but just from like a lore standpoint, the idea that this stuff would be eliminated would just be so sad. So I hope it isn't true. But also there was a quote that Ewan McGregor said about Deborah Chow, who said, he basically said, she is so meticulous about Star Wars lore that she wouldn't let something in the show conflict with something in a game. Like he talks about, obviously, Ewan McGregor has no fucking idea what video games are, but he's like, there's like the Star Wars game. He's talking about Jedi Fallen Order. Like she wouldn't let something in the show conflict with that. So I don't think that she would be as brazen as to say, we can't get like Castle Inquisitorius wrong, but we can completely retcon a 4-season Star Wars show. Like I don't think that's going to happen. But either way, I'm not crazy about that misdirect.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just kind of, if he does survive, I think the whole point is just to show how like ruthless she is in a way where she's just like willing to stab a superior. I think you're right though. I mean, I think he is going to survive, or he's going to survive somehow.
I mean, Ben Solo gets stabbed in the exact same way and then gets force healed. I mean, there are many ways that he could be fine. And I think
the dark side is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Andrew, is there anything else you want to mention while we're here talking about the beginning of the show?
I like it. It's a small note. It's not a big thing. I like how one of the henchmen is I think she's a woman, but I could be wrong. But one of the henchmen for the kidnappers is a Falleen, which is not a species we actually see a lot. The first one I think we're introduced to in Star Wars lore is Prince Zizor, which is like from the old school EU. So like seeing because we're gonna talk about this in a future episode about like alien species and races and stuff. But like I kind of like how like we didn't see any Twi'leks, which I feel like is like the easiest, cheapest one to kind of do. But like I like when they kind of throw in like, hey, like we haven't forgotten this species yet. Or I like the part where when Leia's running through the like kind of like it looks like a pet store kind of thing, and we see like this weird claw thing with an eye that's like a very kind of like obviously not CGI, right? It looks very what's the word I'm looking for with a practical, right? Like a very practical thing. I just like when we see new creatures and stuff and new designs. That ship that they come in at the beginning on Tatooine, it has like it has like this like forked like front kind of thing. Like I like being introduced to new ships and like species and stuff. So that's always fun. That's one of the best parts about Star Wars. So I'm glad we get to see more of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I was happy to see that. I mean, there are a lot of humans in the show, and I mean, it's just always going to be that way. But I like that we get a number of aliens sprinkled throughout. So I was quite pleased about that. The only thing I want to mention, and this might be a hot take, Andrew.
Okay.
But I'm a little unimpressed with that Obi-Wan theme from John Williams. I think it's a little bit understated.
I think you're right, because I can't even Are you talking about with the title card when they play it?
A title card, but then we also hear it when he's grabbing Leia. Like it doesn't.
I don't even remember.
Yeah, it doesn't. The theme doesn't stick out to me. I mean, because say what you will about Book of Boba Fett, but that main theme, great main theme.
This isn't Goranson again, right? It's not Ludwig Goranson.
No, this is John Williams doing this theme.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting up there in age, Abram. He hasn't been on the ball since I think The Force Awakens was the last one that had like really good music. And I can't even begin to tell you what was the theme in Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. I think The Force Awakens, like Rey's theme is like,
I love Rey's theme.
Yes, that one stands out to me. Beyond that, it's just reuse of older themes. So he's slipping. But
my issues with the show are few and far between. My ultimate issue is that I have to wait another week for another episode.
I want to see the next one already, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta wait till another Friday, and I'm just like, oh man, that's the one advantage of Netflix shows. But at the same time, you can't do that with Star Wars because there'd be so many spoilers in 24 hours, so you can't do that.
Yeah, people have to fucking calm down on Twitter. They're not going to, but like. This is a much bigger problem in shows with, frankly, more to spoil. This is, other than Leia, a lot of it is just like character and just the plot advancing. So there's not a huge number of spoilers, but Star Wars Twitter does not give a shit about posting spoilers. So that's a good point. But you could do the Ozark approach, which I like, which is, hey, here's half of the season. Watch half of the season. We take a break. Here's the other half of the season. But
well, that's what they're doing with just quick sidebar with Stranger Things, where I just saw an art like someone on Twitter complaining about IGN, like here's what this means for like the second half. And it's like the show just came out today.
Yeah.
You're already like people binge watching. It's like, well, of course, if you can binge watch, you're going to, but like I like and dislike this. They do this with Marvel also with Marvel shows where it's like little sprinkling. It's like the impulsive what's the word I'm looking for when you want it now and you have no self-control.
Instant gratification.
Yeah, thank you, Abram. The wordsmith Abram right here, Abram Muner. The instant gratification need is like at odds with the I like how it gives us time to think about a whole week to kind of just simmer on something. So it's pros and cons, but I think for Star Wars and like Marvel properties like those, you cannot do a binge because there's so much condensed in that it's just over and then you're done. And like this way we have stuff to talk about, not just for this, obviously we had to talk about this before about content and so the shows are like built around that. But it's just, I just like the sprinkling of Star Wars because as soon as this is done like in what, like at the end of June, I want to say, right?
It's not that long because it's only a 6 episode series.
We're like a third of the way through, right?
Yeah.
And then we have what Andor in
Andor is August 31st.
Okay, so that's basically just September, really.
Yeah.
And so we have like this little sprinkling of like there's always something like worth watching. So I guess in the end I do like that Star Wars does this because it gives us time to kind of marinate on stuff. So but other than that, I don't. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the episodes are actual episodes and not just like chunked out pieces of a larger story, it's okay. And I will say that these episodes did feel satisfying, even though they released 2 episodes. I think they probably could have gotten away with releasing one as was the original plan because it felt like a complete first episode, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad we got 2. I'm very excited for 3.
Aaron, what do you think like on the last one, episode 6, is Obi-Wan gonna have built his little home over the cliffside or whatever? Like, do you think, because right now he's in a cave, I'm wondering like I thought he would have his little like igloo by now at this point. So I'm like, I wonder if that's gonna be a plot point or he's just gonna move into like a little homestead kind of thing somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. The last thing, because here's what I will say, because we won't talk about this show again now until it's finished. So this show, its biggest issue now is going to be resisting the temptation to go full Filoni and just giving us what they think the audience wants. So what I mean is, I think it's probably inevitable, but I really don't want the show to end with a huge fucking Mustafar 2.0 lightsaber battle between.
I hope not either.
Yeah, between Obi-Wan and Anakin. As long as they can resist the temptation to just go, and here's lightsaber fights, and here's referential things and all of that. And the first episodes are good about avoiding that. If they keep this level of quality, this will be the best Star Wars show on Disney Plus.
I agree. I mean, yeah, because you can't mess up the whole like. I had sensed something I haven't felt since. And then just trails off, right? So
yeah,
I mean, they're probably gonna. I mean, like that leaves room, like some wiggle room, right, for obviously the confrontation and stuff. But I don't want whatever happens in this to like overpower the impact of the Death Star fight. So
yeah,
that's where we're at.
So we'll see. But Andrew, it's off to a very promising start. And I was coming in jaded off of Book of Boba Fett, the way it kind of dissolved by the time the season was done. But Deborah Chow, you're doing a good job. And Andrew?
May the Force be with you.
I cut you off there at the end. I'm sorry.